Okay, welcome to Economics and Politics again. We're still on our examination, if you like, of the Labour Party policies which have been brought in over the last few months. We're now early 2025. One of the ideas of the Labour Party is to bring forward capital spending and spend it on infrastructure. Now, that is another, if you like, Keynesian way. It's a socialist way of stimulating the economy. Because if you've got unemployment, you can do that. You can bring forward spending that you might have spent in a year or two. Spend it now. Get people employed, being paid wages. You get them off the unemployment benefit register, and they're working, and they're spending money, and that stimulates the economy. That's the idea behind it. Circular flow of income. Okay, so what are Labour about to do? They're about to increase their spending on infrastructure, in particular. Capital spending often involves spending on infrastructure, spending on trains, roads, things that the market doesn't provide very well. So it might be some, I don't know, some tunneling, or it might be satellites and getting things into space, so we've got better telecommunications. And if the private sector can't do it, then there's a case for the public sector to do the work. Again, there are reasons for that. I'm not going to go into that right now, but yeah, public sector spending on infrastructure is often a good one. They often include things like house building in that, but really that's not infrastructure, and the private sector can produce houses, just has to have the right market conditions to do it. So I would say that, you know, you're pushing it when you say housing. Okay, building hospitals, yes, that's in the public sector. Maybe we could call that infrastructure spending. But here's another one. Ed Milliband wants to spend money on carbon capture. He wants to spend money on, if you like, you know, transferring Britain from using fossil fuels to using renewables. Quite a laudable aim, really, but it's a question of whether we can afford it. And it looks as though the cost of the transfer to net zero is going to be pretty exorbitant, and you can only really achieve that against a background of economic growth, so that we hardly notice it. We're having money taken off us to achieve net zero, but our economy is growing, we're in work, we don't really notice it. It's only a proportion of what we are earning. If we're not getting that economic growth, it's actually quite difficult to keep taking more and more money off people. And one of in Milliband's projects is this carbon capture idea, and various other schemes to you know, get windmills, wind turbines right across the country, alter the rules. You know, they used to be offshore, in other words, not in our way, and you could see them and they look quite pretty. Now they're going to be in our countryside, and if you like, of course, they need wind, so they're going to be on the hills and they're going to be in quite pretty places. So it's disputable as to whether this should be railroaded through, and certainly it is an increase in infrastructure spending when you're spending money on wind turbines and what have you. It's a question of whether they actually bring in more than the expenditure of them. Okay, carbon capture. The Greens, I understand that Ed Milliband is borrowing or using £20 billion of borrowing to achieve, okay, over the next 5 years or whatever, but it's billions and billions of pounds to achieve these things.
Hi Frank, how are you? All right?
That's all right. Yeah, I'm doing doing a little video for my economics group. Yeah, so Ed Miliband is spending around £20 billion on this drive to net zero, and so I would have to say, sorry, I got interrupted there. Ed Milliband is spending a good proportion of money, borrowing, which has to be paid back by taxpayers. So it's always taxpayer money. He's spending money on this, the wind turbine, carbon capture. I don't think that's infrastructure, because I don't see where any money is ever going to be made there. I mean, okay, you might get closer to net zero, but really it's a very expensive way of doing it. When you add in all the other taxes that we have that pay towards, if you like, subsidising the move to net zero, I think we end up with an unsustainable future, unsustainable economic future. But also, to call this infrastructure spending is something of a lie. You need to do something that improves the economy. So more roads does help, because it means people can get about, transport is easier. More railways is good because people can travel. That's not a bad thing, although we will talk about that. I think on balance it's better to spend the money on roads and getting people and goods around the country easily, rather than just on railways. But we'll look at that another time. The fact is, the direction of this expenditure is not going to push the supply curve outwards. In fact, Ed Milliband has cancelled all our coal and gas our oil and gas exploration. So when you do that, you move the supply curve inwards, not outwards, inwards. So again, the supply curve moves inwards, and we end up with higher prices. I can't see that we're not going to have inflation endemic in our economy for the next 10 years as a result of this Labour government.